We first want to learn about business owners, learn about their goals, learn about their desires, their visions, and then learn about their business. The reason why I still have a passion about it is I have a passion to help people.
Hello, we're here with Scott Cockroft. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us why you do what you do?
Yeah, thank you. I am Scott Cockroft. I own a company called Sigma Mergers and Acquisitions, and where we sell businesses. We do valuations as well as sell businesses. I started when I sold my business and realized that there's a lot of inadequacies, let's say, in the industry, and so I thought I could do it better. And after so many years, I'm not sure I'm doing it better, but I'm certainly trying.
What were some of the holes you discovered when you were selling your business in terms of the process?
Yeah, really the idea then was if you want to sell your business, you put it on the internet and see what happens. And there was
There was
really
really
a lack of professionalism, a lack of what I would say packaging the business, getting it right. You see, now we're really understanding that businesses, every successful business has a genius. There's something genius about that business. And if we can take that genius and highlight it to buyers, that's what drives valuations up. That's what drives competition up to buy that business. But back 20 something years ago, it was literally just throw it out there and see what happens.
wow. So how did you get so versed in doing what you're doing?
You know, I was talking about this the other day with a guru that had been in the business a long time. And when I started, it was back in the olden days where they had cassette tapes. And I would actually find every cassette tape that talked about how businesses were sold and listen to them, every book and read them. And I realized again, there is actually a genius in what business brokers were doing, but there was a lack of execution. There was a lack of the professionalism to actually how to execute. And that's really what I wanted to do was to bring a much higher level. It's almost like an M&A firm that's
Mhm.
more for smaller businesses. And that's really what we focused on. And because of that, obviously, we actually got larger businesses and over the years have sold all types of businesses and all size of businesses.
What is one of your favorite client stories since you've sold businesses across a very variety of industries?
Yeah, one of the ones that I often think about is it was a contractor that did natural gas lines. And when he first contacted me, it was actually a financial planner that reached out to me and asked if I would talk to him. I talked to him and the guy came into my office actually with mud on his boots and left it in my lobby. And as we talked through it, he had this great business where he was a contractor for utility companies
Mhm.
installing natural gas lines into your house. So a new
A new
subdivision comes
subdivision
in
comes in.
or a break
Right.
in
In
the natural
the
gas. We were able to turn around and sell that to a family office that was looking for that recurring revenue. But what was interesting about that is the business owner wanted to retire when I sold the company. That's why he wanted to sell the company. After 5 years, he still worked there. I said, why are you still working here? And he said, well, after I got all of the pressures off of me, the HR and all these different things off of me, now this is fun. And it's actually a lot of fun. And so, candidly, 10 years after that, I turned around and did an ESOP and sold it back to the employees of the company. And so, very proud of that progression of what happened. We helped retire a very hardworking entrepreneur, but we also were able to turn it around and have it be employee owned, and everybody won in that deal.
You said the lack of professionalism. Why don't you tell us what you mean by professionalism within what you were doing?
The what I see oftentimes is, let me say it like this. We did a study where we would go out and we would inquire on businesses and we would see how long does it take for the M&A professional or the broker to reach back out to us to sign a non-disclosure to protect confidentiality or provide information. And did you know on average it was 2 weeks and there was more than 30% that never responded at all. No response whatsoever. And so that's when, and I actually did it back before it was popular. We literally created a system that automatically sends the non-disclosure to everyone. Why
Sure.
not? If you're wanting to talk about this business, you should have a non-disclosure to
Oh boy.
sign before you even talk to us. And so we created this system to where every single buyer, well, now in 2026, this is something that's actually very common. Back then, it was not common at all to do that. Still today, many firms are still delayed in reaching out to the buyer after they sign a non disclosure. And so those are things we have automation set up for to make sure that that connection happens, because sometimes a buyer reaches out at 2 a.m. and then the next day they're working on something else. And so the idea is that have that constant contact of saying, hey, would you like to talk about this business? What we found is, you know, I tell you, I don't know why it blows people's mind in the industry. We get well over 100 non-disclosures on every business we take to market, well over 100. And we're getting 4 or 5 offers on every single business.
Mhm.
Well, honestly, I believe one is packaging of how it's presented when we actually discover the genius in the business and
Mhm.
promote that genius besides just financials. That creates that demand for that business. But what happens is when we're reaching out in an automated fashion, that buyer comes back and says, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Or I inquired on 15 businesses. Now I forgot. I'm interested in your business. Let's talk about it. And that drives up our conversations. The more conversations we're having about your business, the better it helps actually our clients.
And do you ever get bored doing what you're doing? It doesn't sound like it's possible.
I do not get bored with what I'm doing. I love it. I'm passionate about it. Now, keep in mind, one of the things I believe, and I was raised to believe this, and so it's in my core that we help people. This is not about so much a business. This is not so
So
much
much about
about the money. This is really about helping people. And so everybody has goals, everybody has visions, everybody has plans,
plan.
and if we don't understand what that is, we're going to miss the point when we go to sell their business. And so, going back to what you said, John, the reason why I still have a passion about it is I have a passion to help people.
It's definitely a great hand in glove fit to who we are at Checky Financial, because the investments, the money, and all those things, those are just a tool to help our clients live the lifestyle that they're already living or that they desire to live. So it's exactly what you're doing is helping the business owner, in the case that you shared just a moment ago, free himself from the daily challenges and yet realize he still loves the work. Or maybe it's more these sail off into the sunset type so they can move on to other things in their life with after they sell their business.
We kind of
That's
tell
right.
our clients, and I'm anxious to hear your takeaway on this too, that if we can possibly get you about a couple of years before you plan on selling your business or
100%.
retiring, we can then give you some helpful hints as to what happens after this happens to you. And you have to have something else you're retiring to. Otherwise, your darling wife or husband is going to become a rich, darling wife or husband, widow or widower in about 17 short months. So, what helpful hints do you give the folks that are about to sell their business, Scott?
We work, and I will tell you this, it what you just hit on, I smile because that is one of our biggest struggles. So often I'm talking to business owners. In fact, earlier this year, I had a conversation with a what I would call a young man, was not much older than me, and said he had a bad diagnosis and he would like the idea of selling his business. Long story short, I if I would have talked to him 2 years prior, we could have sold his business for another 30% more. He literally passed away before we were able to go to market. His wife is getting less than half of what
Mhm.
it would have been because he was not set up. And I don't see that, so that I don't talk about that to throw stones at anyone. I talk about that to say, if you're prepared, oftentimes entrepreneurs are wanting to start their own business. They want to protect their family. They want to protect their assets. But at the end of the day, they want control of that business. Where at the end, what happens is when you're ready to sell your business, if you've prepared for it, you've prepared your family much
Mhm.
better. You've set up your future much better, and ideally, you can exit and actually enjoy the fruit of your labor. And oftentimes, what's happening is they're holding on too long. We talk about the silver tsunami that is happening right now, but one of the reasons why there's still so many out there that are to retirement age, but they're holding on. It's that control issue. And what I would say is I encourage you to take 2 years, 3 years, and let's prepare for the sell. Then let's sell it. And then you may stay on as a consultant for a year, 2 years after. So we're literally talking about 4, 5, 6 years from now before you're totally out of the business. And oftentimes, when business owners can actually see that, they can understand, "Oh, if I can protect my investment, I can increase the amount of proceeds I'm getting from the business and actually make the transition better. I need to
I
do
need
that now instead of wait."
delighted to hear that because years ago I was giving a workshop, just part of one of 8 speakers, and I said, "How the succession plan is a room full of certified public accounts," and they just looked at me the doe in the headlights look. Which, by the way, if you don't know what that means, kids out in the audience, means, "My God, I never thought of that." And I said, "And how many of you are sole practitioners?" 70% of the room raised their hand. And I said, "Look, next year, I don't want to see as many deer in the headlights looks." Also, as a certified financial planner, years ago, a certified financial planner, registered investment advisor, passed away. It had never happened in the DFW market at that time. It was the early 90s. And the SEC was shocked by it too. And the SEC asked for all the client records. And somebody with a sane head in his brain in his head said, "No, the clients didn't die, the advisor died." So from that point on, at the CFP Society here locally, started giving, "Oh, by the way, you need to have a succession plan." So we have one at Checky Financial. I'm not going to embarrass you. I hope not, Scott. Do you have a succession plan also?
100%. I couldn't be in this business and seeing what I see day to day and not actually do that for myself.
I'm misplaced as punch to hear that because if I had a dime for every financial advisor who gives me that other look when I ask him that question, and JJ, why don't you tell him the story about how we woke up one day and had 268 clients with some names we'd never seen before?
Yes, an advisor passed away that John had talked to previously, but didn't discussion didn't go very far. It was just kind of they met one another, knew that he was considering a succession plan in the conversation. Fast forward, he passes away, and somehow the connection of John and he spoke in the past meant it was his responsibility to take care of their clients. And in this case, the accounts weren't set up and say managed the same way that we manage the accounts. So it was kind of a totally different experience with the clients that we inherited. Just leave it at that. But it was very odd in the sense of literally he's had no plan set up. And even there was some conversation with a widow after the advisor passed away. Unfortunately, in this case, kind of like to your point of since there wasn't preparation in advance, the business was worth much less than would have been. In this case, there was pretty much no business value. So that then the
That's
widow
right.
wasn't compensated
And
because
it's the
there was
difference between
value.
someone who runs their business with taking all the money up front in commissions and doesn't leave any recurring income. And at
Mm.
Checky Financial, we absolutely are beyond fans of recurring income. So, what best advice would you give somebody of a certain age? And at least two of us in this conversation are of a certain age. What's the best advice you can give somebody in terms of managing their business, making sure they're protecting their family at all, Scott?
Well, what we recommend at Sigma is to do an exit strategy, and that can be a key word that everybody hears. But when we actually break it down to what that means, is we really want to come into the business and give you a score to say, are you ready to exit the business? Are you not ready to exit the business? If you're not ready, what are the steps that you need to take to be ready? Those often are not something you can do in an afternoon, and so
Sure.
typically, that is done over a 2 to 3 year period to get the business ready to sell. And what that literally is doing is protecting your asset. It's protecting your family. I've said, and it goes to your point. When we set up everything in succession planning in my business and those things, I literally told my wife, I said, I think the kids would be shocked if I didn't have everything set up correctly when I die. And so I need to get everything lined out. Here's what is shocking is there's so many entrepreneurs out there that put their blood, sweat, and tears
Mhm.
starting and running and maintaining a business. And now we're getting to later in their life and they're tired. They understand they don't want to do this the rest of their life. And so instead of stopping and saying, let's prepare, let's get ready, let's look at customer concentration, let's look at your contracts, let's actually look at your financials, not to say you have to pay more taxes, but to say maybe that there's some structuring that we have to do on that. From a legal standpoint, I've talked to many business owners that they have a corporation, but they're not set up correctly within their corporation to, when we go to sell the business, it's going to cost them more in taxes. You see, many business owners are so concerned about paying taxes that when they sell their business, they're missing the value and they literally can get three times. Let's go further. It's actually nine times on average the amount of tax they pay. They can get nine times that plus more in the proceeds they get. And so you're throwing pennies after dollars. And so that's the point here is we have got to prepare. And if we do a good job preparing, we can actually benefit from all that hard work. You asked earlier about what was some of the unprofessionalism I saw before. Many of people in our industry are really looking what I would call low hanging fruit. It's somebody coming in, want to sell their business, and yeah, I can get you a buyer. Let's get you a buyer and close without stopping and first saying, "Hey, let's do tax strategy. Let's do a few things here that can make sure we're maximizing your value. Let's find what is genius about your business that actually is what makes you different than your competitor." So we can get you the highest possible value for the least amount of taxes that you can pay. And that transition happens without wrecking your entire business or your family.
Do you have all that in-house within your company, or do you actually
For the
consult with
most part.
folks?
Yeah, for the most part, I will tell you this: we do consult on the tax side outside, and we do have some. In 2026, we've started some AI recommendations for businesses, and we outsource some of that type of work.
Yeah, I always ask AI because at only 78 and a half years of age, I love telling people of all ages, oh, by the way, just because you get older doesn't mean suddenly you got stupid. And we have several on the telephone, which actually can do all kinds of tricks. Then I'll have having gone to an all day AI seminar from one of the gurus that I followed for 8 years and had dinner with, and is a real person as opposed to just somebody who sells workshops. We always question all AI programs. I want you to check the veracity, in case you don't know what veracity means, the truthfulness and accuracy of what you're telling me. And then I'm going to check you with another AI program and ask that AI program to shoot holes in what you just mentioned to me. Other than that, have a
Yes.
wonderful day. So it goes back to as a certified public accountant for 50 years, no kidding. When you were a young CPA, they always said to you, check your work. Just like the debits are next to the window in terms of depending upon which way your desk sits. So I'm delighted to hear that. Now, what's the happiest story you've ever had for a business owner sale, Scott?
The happiest. Well, there's a lot. I still have people that are in their late 80s that call me their son. So in some of those things, I say that those are happy deals. One that comes to mind was a manufacturing business that we sold. And when they contacted me, the owners are CPAs and they owned a manufacturing business and they did a great job from a financial standpoint. They did a great job and they had actually done a good job when they came to me in preparing the business to sell. When they told me how much they wanted for the business and how much they had gone out and done their research, we did a deep dive. So I don't want to make this short conversation say I said it on the phone right then, but we did a deep dive. And after that deep dive, I will tell you that we literally told them that they were short almost 50% on what they could get for the business. And they told us, "Fine, we'll go with you, but we're never gonna believe that you're gonna get this." And literally, I had 6 offers for that exact price that we said, and closed it. The reason why I say that was a happy story is she has recommended me to so many people, so many of her friends that she has worked with to prepare their business for sale because she's a CPA. And when you talk about the buyer, actually the buyer that bought the business, we sold him a business 6 years prior to that. He grew it dramatically. He bought this about 3 years ago, and in 3 years, he's almost doubled the business. And what I see, this is when you say a happy deal, Here's what's happy. It's not about the commission. Is that the highest commission I've ever made? No way. Is that any way through this deal the most money that I've ever sold a business for? No. The key here is the owner was to the point that I get Christmas cards from her every
Yeah.
year. The buyer has been so happy because we were able to give him another quality business that he was able to grow, and these employees are happy and the business is growing, and it's actually helping society instead of selling a business, getting a commission, and then 2 years later the business closes. Those are not happy stories.
Can you ever imagine retiring yourself, Scott?
I was asked that the other day, and I said, I think when I'm 85, I'm going to have a hard time talking as much as I'm talking now. But I'm going to say, well, I still can sell one business this year. And so I'm going to do that. Because again, it goes back to as long as I'm on earth, I want to help people. And to me, that's what I'm doing when I'm selling a business is helping people. I'm helping the business owner and I'm helping the buyer.
Now, a lot of business owners have a bad habit of not taking a vacation. What are your thoughts on taking a vacation, Scott?
If you cannot take a vacation, that's a sign that your business is not as valuable as you think it is. Secondly, you need a vacation because I've seen some business owners that I've sold their business, and I told them along the way, I think if you'd have just gone on a 2 week vacation, you would not needed to have actually sold your business, because many business owners are burnt out, and because of that they're ready to just throw up their hands and give up, when it reality is if you would take a regimen every year and take vacations, take time away, shut the phone off, and shut the emails off, and actually focus on unplugging for a little bit. Your employees are going to be happier, your vendors are going to be happier, customers are going to be happier. That's my thought.
And JJ, what would you add to taking time off?
It's important to refresh and then hopefully you work in your schedule throughout, even while your work week, things that you enjoy, but have an extended time to be able to do that, to spend time with your loved ones, like your spouse, your children, do other activities, to just get to step away is refreshing. It could be 2 weeks, like Scott just referenced. It can even be a shorter period of time, but the importance of unplugging, have your backup, make sure it's being covered for you, but to be able to refresh and just think about other things and to be able to come back fully ready, engaged, and you get new ideas in the process because you're actually able to get a different perspective on the situation.
We've worked that into our life too. My wife Susie is a professional singer and she sings with a swing band on Thursdays and Tuesday evenings. So our life now kind of revolves around that schedule. And luckily, she's found a 95-year-old lady who used to sing with the band all the time. And now she'll substitute the gig. So this Friday, we are going off to not Pebble Beach this time, although that's just 17 miles away, to Carmel by the Sea to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary, which
Oh, wow.
was a major accomplishment since it was not our first time to get married in either case. But we've discovered that for us, taking a 4 or 5 day trip, commonly for us, is more than enough time because we get tired of entertaining all the shopkeepers and the restaurant people and the people we pass by. And Carmel by the Sea is a great place to go visit. Now, what is your favorite place to visit when you're not working day and night, Scott?
As I mentioned before, we're actually have a plan to Kauai, and this is our, I don't know, fifth, sixth time we've been to Kauai because we love it. And from my standpoint, there's a beach that you have to take a Jeep to. Believe me, I had a different rental car the first time I went. You definitely need a 4-wheel drive to get there. It's a state park, but in Hawaii they kind of pave the roads a little different there, and so we found this beach that has almost no one there with the most beautiful scenery. And if you look at all my screensavers and all my backgrounds, they're all of Kauai on the road to this beach or this beach itself. And so, believe me, when I stop there, my phone is turned off and I'm soaking that in. I will mention something, JJ, you mentioned I was in a entrepreneur group called Strategic Coach, and
Oh,
Strategic Coach has said that you should have free days every
mhm.
week. And that is something that I have. done periodically, but not as much as I should.
I've had
Uh,
dinner with Babs and
there you
Dan,
go.
no kidding, and they're delightful. It's a great strategy to take time off. And Scott, just for fun, why don't you tell us what those days are in terms of the focus days, the buffer days, and free days?
Yeah, let's start with the free days because that's where we started here was the free day is literally where you're taking off, you're unplugging, you're not answering emails, you're not answering text or phone calls, you're completely free and you set up your business so that you can be completely free. I still remember in that class, in that group we were talking about, some people are 7 days a week. I would say that I right now, I do about 2 days a week that are free days. I feel like I should be doing more than 2 days a week because I was in that group and I feel like it should have expanded more than what it is. So I feel bad about that. Buffer days or days that you're actually putting in your calendar, you're actually scheduling time to get ready for to make money. It's ready to your focus days are really where you're on and you're selling and you're making money. Buffer days are preparing for that. And so the more focus days you can have, the days that you're actually making money, you're actually working and you're actually selling, the more money you're making and the better it's going. The buffer days are getting ready for that. Many times you can outsource some of those activities for buffer days and just getting prepared and getting ready. And I would find in my industry, that's what I going from unprofessional
Unprofessional
business
business
broker that
broker
that
that
just sells
just help.
everything that moves, where the business broker's doing everything from start to finish. That's one reason that it's unprofessional. At the end of the day, you really need somebody that knows how to write and doesn't just throw it in AI in 2026, but actually knows how to write to prepare the businesses to go to market. You actually have people that are working on the financials to prepare, to help strategize before we go to market. Those things are buffer times. Those are getting ready before we're actually going to market and sell the business and actually interacting with buyers. Those things I say you're selling your business well before we actually present it to buyers. If we cannot prepare the business to sell after we've engaged with buyers, that's too late. It goes back to your point. There are focus days. Those are the times we're engaging. Buffer days is we're preparing. Free days is we're unplugging and we're recharging.
And the world owes a debt to Babs for coming up with that because she gave her darling husband a hard time about never ever taking a free day. So that's kind of sort of where that concept came up factually. Since I love backstories, as JJ well knows, and like doing a lot of research. And lucky enough, I've gotten to talk to a lot of people in person for a variety of reasons, which I'm not going to belabor. Now, what was the biggest mistake you ever made helping somebody sell a business, Scott?
The biggest mistake, I would say that I was selling a oil and gas service business and years ago, and this was a situation that goes counter everything we've talked about on this podcast, where he called and said, I want to sell the business. And it was double digits and millions that he wanted to sell. And we looked at the financials and we said, great, no problem. Let's go to market. We went to market at exactly what he said he wanted, and we got a buyer that said they would pay exactly what he wanted for the business. That all sounds good. The mistake I made was in due diligence when they actually looked through the financials. Had I actually done a deep dive and looking at those financials, I would have discovered this. He had over $500,000 in
In
fertilizer that he charged in the business. We asked why do you have fertilizer charged to the business? His exact response was, we charged the
charge
business for that. I had no idea we charged the business for that. I actually believe him that he did not know that, especially after I got to know him. And the issue is we could have gotten another good multiple of that $500,000 more for his business than we did. And so I still, to this day, even though that was probably 15 years ago, I still regret that. And part of that is my motivation for preparing businesses because I do not want you to have business that you're trying to sell, and we can realize we can make a few quick changes and make you a whole lot more money, or have a structure that actually saves you in taxes that we didn't know about. Those are things that I regret when it comes down to it.
Well, Scott, I'm glad I asked you that question as a surprise, and here's kind of sort of why. You discovered a particular problem, and the problem commonly happens in small businesses where they forgot to mention that, oh, by the way, I take a lot of my personal expenses or my farm expenses or my horse racing, whatever it is,
Right.
and I run that through the company. And then you have people say to you as a CPA, I've heard people say, well, there's this raw report and what I actually make. I go, first of all, we commonly say to folks, one, pretend everything you just said is being recorded. Two, will be testified to before a federal court under oath in terms of the veracity of what you just said to me. But whenever somebody makes a mistake like you just did or has a surprise like you just had, Scott, it's a learning experience. And since you've had that learning experience, that will never blink and happen again for you unless you look at it when you have the flu. So that's a great learning experience. And anybody that says, oh, I never made a mistake, never did anything, or is just a lie.
No, I think it took me a minute to understand because I'm shifting through all the mistakes I've made through the years. Absolutely.
A good counter to that is, what's the best compliment you've ever received?
The best compliment I've ever received was actually, I referred to her earlier. I sold a business and the lady was 86 years old, and she told me I'm now her son, and I can come. I need to come to Thanksgiving and I need to come to Christmas because of really what we were able to do for her in with her business. She thought she would never be able to sell her business. It was actually a really good business, very, very good. And she never thought she was basically absentee ran. She was never at the business. She had a great, I guess it came down to she wanted she thought if she passed away, what was going to happen to the business. And none of her family wanted it. And so she needed to sell it. And at 86, we were able to sell it. And I guess now I have a new grandmother.
Did she stay on as a consultant or just officially retire?
Honestly, she did not have to stay on one day after closing. She actually set up the business really, really well.
And is that typical or is that the exception to what you've
That's the
encountered?
exception to the rule. That's 100% exception to the rule. Most business owners need to prepare a little better for an exit because honestly, there's things that can be done. I talk to business owners all the time that they're surprised at how easily we can make little changes and it make all the difference in the world in a sellable business versus a non-sellable business, or a sellable business at X versus getting Y for their business. And
Why don't you
so
give us an example of what some of those changes might be? Not that anybody can possibly do it as well as you do, seriously, but give us some helpful hints along that line, Scott.
yeah, I've had business owners that literally have employees in their business that are doing tasks and they are coming into the business and basically getting in the way. And I'm like, if you would just stay home and we could stay home for a few months and realize that the business is going to actually increase without your involvement. And at that point, we can actually sell the business as absentee, which gets a higher multiple for the
Mhm.
business. You chuckle. It's surprising how many I run across that I'm like, you're already set up. Leave. Like, stop being involved in the business day to day. It's that control issue that you want. And believe me, this is not me throwing stones. I have control issues as well. I think we all do, especially entrepreneurs have control issues. But the idea here is if you don't have that person, hire that person. And I hear many business owners say, well, I can't replace me. No, you cannot replace you. That's a fact. You are not able to replace you. You definitely try to find somebody better than you. And believe me, I can find somebody in my shoes that are better than me. Maybe they don't have the experience I have, but mentor them, actually bring them along into your wisdom, into your genius that you have for the business. And as you can transfer that business, it's worth more. The ability to transfer the business to someone else is really the determining factor if the business is sellable or not. And oftentimes, one of the things that helps you get more for your business is to go ahead and transition it to an employee even before you sell it. and work through those difficulties because it may
Mhm.
take you a year, 2 years, or 3 years to get it actually transferred over. But at that point, you're able to get a lot more for the business. In other examples, it's actually taxes where they're taking certain deductions. And I'm like, if you would book it, it's still a deduction. If you book it in a different area, we can count it as profit in your EBITDA. It doesn't change anything for you, and you're able to get more money for your business.
Why don't you remind everybody what EBITDA actually means in plain English?
Sorry. Yeah, EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's basically profit. Depreciation and amortization is paper expenses. So it can be in most businesses, not all businesses, and most businesses can be added back to profit. In some businesses where there's a lot of equipment expenses, that in those situations we are not able to add back depreciation. But that's probably more information than you wanted there.
No, that's dead solid perfect. Jetta has a great question about family, actually a dinner.
Family dinner, yes. If you could have three people have dinner with three people, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
Three people dead or alive. Three. All right. The first one obviously and I don't want this to be too cliche, but is Jesus. I
Mhm.
would love to sit down and ask a few questions to there's some sorry, I have a degree in theology, so that's probably not good to share on this type of call, but and so I have a
I
lot of
used to be a youth
questions.
minister, so we were Bible
Mhm,
folks.
yeah. Yes, vocational student ministry for 9 years, and I still get to minister to people every day. So, you're definitely on the right podcast to share that.
Well, I definitely have a lot of thoughts, a lot of questions that I would love to ask, and I'm not sure if the other two that I would want to have calls with, if I actually or sit down for dinner with, if I actually was able to sit down with Jesus, I'm not sure the others would matter. But to answer your question, I would love to sit down with Elon Musk and to discuss his focus. It's not about his business. I'm not interested in his business. I'm interested in his focus. Elon Musk is the most focused individual that we've probably had in the last 100 years. And I would love to sit down and learn from him about how he focuses so intently on job, his task, his business, all of those things, because ultimately, I believe that that focus is what's made him the richest man in the world.
Even Elon Musk and his brother once required a letter from a friend of mine in terms of so they could get a loan for one of their businesses. So I tell everybody in the audience that, oh, by the way, here on the planet Earth, everybody had a period of time where they were just starting out and no one realized what a stone cold that happened to be at the time.
That's right. That's right. And then another one that is probably a little too political, but I would love to sit down with Donald
Donald
Trump. And
Trump.
here's why: it's not about anything other than I have never seen anyone face so much difficulty and he acts like it's nothing. And so here's the point. It doesn't matter what you believe politically. Does not matter at all. We can all learn from somebody like that where you're faced with adversity and you keep moving on and it doesn't affect you mentally. That mental strength is an asset that we should try to learn and be better at. And so those are the three, and I would learn three different
To
things
be
from each of
resilient
them.
is beyond helpful in terms of that because everybody and their dog, including all three of us on this particular podcast, have had days that we thought, gee, that did not go exactly as planned. And we all know that God laughs at the plans of man. And for those of us who've been making plans for themselves and other people since we're in the Sea Scouts in New Jersey, read that passage all the time with, thanks God for making me a planner. I really appreciate that particular
That's
task.
funny.
If you had
That's
one
funny.
last thing you'd like to say to folks out in Cloudlandia, what would that be, Scott?
I would encourage you to take your business serious. And what I mean by that is when you're reaching a place where you're wanting to exit, whether it's exit to do another business or exit for retirement, it's literally take it serious. Don't halfway do it, completely do it. Go after it. And what I mean by that is plan. Make a strategy, and that strategy doesn't happen in a weekend. That strategy happens over time. And as we work through the business, we can understand that 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you'll be set up to properly sell your business with all of the I's dotted, all of the T's crossed without missing important aspects of your business as well as your plan. Because why I like this business is so much it's helping people. But why I like helping people is everybody has a goal, everybody has a plan. I'm wanting to help them achieve their goal. Oftentimes, I talk to business owners that I will tell them if you would have contacted me 2 years before you wanted to sell, we could have achieved your goal. We could have even exceeded your goal. But because you contacted me the day you were ready to sell, well, at that point, I can't even achieve your goal, much less exceed your goal. So I would encourage you, take it serious, focus in on what needs to happen, and let's plan it and let's actually have the best outcome we possibly can.
We jokingly say to folks, you can either plan ahead or wish you had already done so.
Yeah, that's right. That's
One
good.
more question that would maybe useful, maybe like a 20-second kind of snapshot of what you do. You've explained it throughout the podcast, but just maybe a short clip of what you do and how you serve your clients.
Thank you. We at Sigma, we first want to learn about business owners, learn about their goals, learn about their desires, their visions, and then learn about their business. We dig into the business. We don't always are able to do it, but we want to do it 3 years before they're ready to exit their business. We're actually looking at an exit strategy. We're developing an exit strategy. We're developing a
Developing a
baseline
baseline
valuation for the
valuation for the
business. And then
and
we're
then we're
updating that valuation over year over year over year to see where it's going. And then when we help them
help them
sell the
sell the
business
business.
and exit the business with a proper tax strategy and with a proper view of the business to make sure that they're maximizing their value, but maximizing what their goal is and their vision. Because honestly, and this is where people miss it all the time, business owners' goal is not always about the most money, because sometimes the most money that you get out of the business does not have the right buyer post closing. And if you have a good business, you want to make sure that business continues. Your employees have somebody good to work for, and you want to make sure your vendors and your customers have the right partner for them. And so we're looking not just for the highest possible price, but we're looking for the right buyer. It may be a family office, a private equity, a strategic buyer, or an individual buyer, according to the size of business that you're looking at selling. That is important, but it's not just important to get enamored with the highest offer, but it's better to get enamored with the best structure and the best buyer, the one that actually is going to take the business to the next level and continue your legacy well beyond.
Folks, you can certainly see that Scott is very, 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 very committed and passionate to what he's doing. And he's about to take a 2-week vacation with his darling family. So congratulations on following your own advice, Scott, along.
Thank you.
Thank you for this time. If you would like to learn more, check out Scott and his website and also more podcasts with other professionals. Thank you.